Hello and welcome to Movies, Films, and Flicks. I am Mark Hoffmeyer, and joining me is a man that will be recording this episode with gigantic rain machines above his head, just pounding rain down on him. It's David Cross.
Good thing I have an umbrella. Or actually, it's a good thing I have a trifold hat, which may or may not collect the water, making it useless. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out. But I gotta say, the noise reduction on your end is unbelievable, David. I don't know what you're using, but I don't hear any of that pouring rain that is just flooding your apartment as we speak. The people below you are going to be... They're going to be in misery. I think it's worth it for this episode.
I am, if not committed to the MMF family. Rain, hail, sleet. I'm going to podcast through. We're going to get this done.
Okay, so you and I have been planning this episode for
a year.
A year, easy a year.
Yeah.
Because we had to get through I make it sound like it was a hard slog through our Underworld franchise coverage. But I feel like this movie has been looming over us for well over a year now. And I gotta say, like, it was worth the wait because I love this movie. And I remember watching this in a theater in 2001 and not being prepared for it at all. A 2.5-hour political intrigue, Sherlock and Holmes. Sherlock. Then you have a monster. Then you have political intrigue. You have a love story. You have martial arts, rain, just
everything.
Yeah, undercover agents that work for the Pope. I mean, it is... Like, oh, hey, well, we caught the beast. We got to go now. All right. Well, hey, we got to come back. And you're like, what is happening? Wait, these people want to overthrow the Pope with all these monsters? And there's people just getting murdered horribly. And there's a CGI monster running around. And Vincent Cassel with a gigantic sword that can split. And Mark Dacascos, one of my favorites from Only the Strong. And he has a jet ski action scene in Double Dragon is in this movie. There's rain fights with a bunch of people who are dressed up like clowns or women. I mean, it is, because they're undercover to get the wolf attacking them. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so there's so much to this movie, but I absolutely adore it. The director, Christophe Gans, he was just saying that he wanted to make a big French action film. He didn't want, he just wanted to make a movie that stands, like, that the world would want to see. He didn't want to just make a French film. He wanted to make an action film that the world would love. And I think he succeeded. This movie is a blast.
Yeah. So let's actually chat about that. So I also saw this opening weekend when it came out, pretty young. I think I was a freshman in college. I had mixed thoughts on it when I first watched it because it was so of its time. It's still of its time, and it came out after The Matrix, and I was like, this feels like it's kind of riffing on The Matrix a little bit, and I hadn't really studied film enough at that point. And I remember the trailer as well, like, did not capture what this movie was about.
No.
Not at all.
The trailer made you believe that this was a horror film with monsters and Monica Bellucci in it. No political intrigue.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about it, and having rewatched it and having reappraised it, Mark, I love this movie.
Oh.
You know, when you're young, you sometimes see things and you don't have the appreciation or the understanding of what makes it awesome. And having now watched so many hundreds of thousands of movies, this is a banger. I can confidently say that. Oh,
it's an absolute banger. And I also love the two leads in this movie of Mark Dacascos, and then you have Samuel Le Bihan, which I just learned by listening to an interview that he did, because he's a wildly prolific actor in France. So I apologize if I didn't get that perfect, but we tried, David. Like, we researched this name. We didn't want to be butchering it. But I think they're awesome. Like, Franzak, the dude's a beast. And he actually reminds me of a French Tom Jane. He kind of looks like Tom Jane from The Punisher.
I was thinking the same thing. I was like, he's a beefier Highlander.
Whoa, Christopher Lambert?
Yeah, just beefier. But I think Tom Jane's a better descriptor.
Yeah, and then you got just Mark Dacascos, who, he is playing a Mohawk.
Boy.
Yeah. Like, he's playing a Native American. But it's kind of funny what he said. He's like, I'm not Native American, but he's like, I'm Chinese, Spanish, Filipino, He's like, my mother's half Irish and half Japanese, Greek. It was like, I was born in Hawaii, raised in Germany. He's like, I'm not Native American, but he did say that he studied a lot and he worked with a Mohawk teacher from Canada, and she was from the Wolf tribe, which is kind of funny. But he said that she taught him how to sing and like the rhythm and sounds, and he didn't want to just come in and be horribly, he didn't want to be like from a Western from the 1930s.
Or maybe, I don't know, an action movie starring Johnny Depp from 2000 and what?
Oh yeah, Lone Ranger. Yeah.
I'm actually really glad you brought that up, Mark, because that was one of the things I was interested in talking about, because I was like, oh, a non-Native American actor playing a Native American role. And I had to remind myself, hey, this was a different time in 2001. That wouldn't really fly today. But I am also really appreciative of Mark of like putting the effort in to try to make it as real as possible. That's something I think a lot of people want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for actors, right? Because he had worked with Christoph Gans before Mark Dacascos had. And so he got hired for this. He got the role written for him. The role
turned that down.
The role of Manny was originally a Yoda type character, who was kind of an older, this super wise, sage advice, that kind of stuff. But then they got Mark Dacascos, and they're like, okay, spin kicks. So they had to completely change the character around to fit to Dacascos. And listen, you're watching this, and 2001 French film, and listen, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not condoning any actions, but there's really no excuses to make for it. But like you said, it was in 2013 they had casting issues. I'm sure they had casting issues last year. They did, actually. So it doesn't make any of it right, but I still love Mark Dacascos. I mean, when I saw him in John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum, such a long name, but I don't think I could have been happier watching him fight Keanu Reeves during a final fight in a gigantic action franchise. But just remember how much the trailers were built around Dacascos and his rain fight and his hat and their dusters. Yeah. Like that poster was everywhere when you saw it. But you know what's interesting? Tell me if I'm wrong, David. Am I being ignorant here? But in the beginning, when it's raining, they're wearing their raincoats, but it kind of opens up into a cone into their neck. I feel like that's a perfect place just for water to congregate.
Of course, yeah. It's there's a lot of things about this movie that aren't very believable, but you're not watching this to be believable. You're just watching it to see attractive people in a really cool setting fight monsters and people.
Whoa, attractive people in a beautiful setting fighting monsters.
This is like peak MMF. This movie absolutely is.
Yeah, it's perfect. And listen, like I think it ties in like real life story, like real life things from the history of France. I was reading interviews with the director, and he said that where did I find this interview at? Yeah, he's like, it happened over a period of 3 years in the 18th century. Something or somebody killed more than 100 women and children in a French region. Nobody knew what it was, and it became a political issue. Everyone was making bad jokes about how the king could not capture this beast. It's still a mystery. So, and it's also set during an Enlightenment, so people are debating about modern ideas, freedom, religion, equality, and other rights. He's like, if we remember the story well, I think it's because it happens precisely during that moment. It's a big shock between the modern age and the dark age. And then also, too, I was reading about this movie, and there's a really neat article that breaks down this film, and I love what they called it. They called this movie a wild kung fu horror French Revolution hybrid that contained an immortal visual pun in which a shot of Monica Bellucci's bare breast faded into a shot of a snow-capped mountain peak.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was going to be one of my 5 favorite things, because how audacious it is.
Oh, man.
It's not now. I'm going to take that out. Still, like, wow, did they really do that? They just did.
I mean, listen, I'm not trying to be, and I'm not trying to be, I guess, bro-ish here, but when that shot happened, I just had the biggest smile on my face, because I'm like, they just faded into a mountain peak. Like, that's a Naked Gun 2.5 joke. Like, that's not, so you're watching this movie, and then all of a sudden they do that transition, and that's when you can kind of realize that this movie does have a sense of humor to it. There's a cheeky side to it, for sure, but you know why I like it, David, is it's such a hybrid. This is not one movie, but all of the things work together well, which I really enjoy. And also, too, because it blends so many genres together, I feel like it's very original. This is not a stock picture at all. And even though I was in the same boat as you in 2001 when I went, what is good? I was like, I love this movie, but I know nothing about the French Enlightenment when I went to go see it. So I was just like, why are they like, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but now I really adore it. And I feel like since 2001, I mean, this movie made 70 million worldwide. It has a 7.0 on IMDb. It's 73% of Rotten Tomatoes. People like it, and it made money, but it hasn't become a super cult classic. But I still think the people who have watched it adore it. There's kind of a Brotherhood of the Wolf community out there who are very loyal to this movie.
Yeah. I know when it came out on Shudder, this was a couple
months back. Yeah.
Twitter went nuts. Film Twitter, they were so excited about it, and I was there for it. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, I own it on Blu-ray, but I'll watch it on Shudder too.
If we were more topical, we would have released the episode then, because you are right. Film Twitter. I mean, listen, it's definitely a microcosm of its own world, but it felt like an event on Film Twitter. It really did. And whenever I tweet a photo or put it up on Facebook or Instagram, I always get people going, yes. Like, they're very happy to hear about this movie. Because, you know what's neat is, let's see, this was 2001, so I was just graduating from high school. So I really knew nothing about French cinema. I hadn't watched Breathless yet. I didn't know who Godard was. All those type of films, like the French New Wave in the early 60s was really foreign to me. So, you know what's interesting? For me, I like learned about Hong Kong cinema, action films. I learned about Japanese cinema from like gangster films. You learn about like Hong Kong or Korean cinema from horror movie and action films. So here's a French action film that sort of
opened your eyes.
No, and in Korea, I believe a movie called Taegukji, which John Lasvath, the former co-host of this show, recommended to me. So then I learned about Korean action films by watching Taegukji. So it's like, all these movies I learn about, Indonesia, The Raid. So I learned about all these movies, and that opened up the cinematic door for me. But this was probably my first experience with French cinema, and
same. It had to have been. Yeah, I mean, is Amélie French?
Yeah,
It came out after this, and I still honestly I have not seen that whole movie. I've seen like 30 minutes of it.
Oh wow, I think it's I watched it in college. I watched that in college with my friend.
Yeah.
With my friend Matt. We were both bouncers at a place called Big Daddy's, and we used to watch movies like Layer Cake and Old Boy. We watched Amélie. Like we were he's like 7 foot, and we were bouncers, but we loved watching independent cinema from around the world.
It contained multitudes, Mark.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I did want to jump in before you get too far away about like some of the things I think are really good about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think you nailed them already, but just to reiterate, it's gorgeous. The cinematography is really strong, including the set pieces and the costuming. It just looks just really, really good. I think the acting is strong. Again, I don't speak French, so maybe they have like horrible accents or like they're stilted. I don't know, but from my perspective, I think it went really well. And then I do love how it's 3 different genres mashed together. And I mean, it's historical drama, it is horror, it is action movie. Just put into a blender and blend it. And the more movies I watch, the more I realize how rare that is. And so when you find one, you really need to celebrate it and show everyone and talk about it. And we talked about previously, I really, really over-index on unique and creative because I have gotten to this point in film watching, where I could guess the ending of movies pretty easily. And this one, I'm like, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's I never would have guessed that they would have just gone away and that the monster was just being controlled. And that, I mean, listen, Vincent Cassel is going to be the villain, but I didn't know that he had 2 arms and one was horribly disfigured, and he had a sword that could. I don't know what his sword does, and I don't know.
It's a whip sword. It's a whip sword.
It's a whip sword. I don't know how it works, but
it works through the magic of CGI.
Like the power of what, like necromancy, I guess it works.
I don't know.
It's I don't. There's a lot. You know what's interesting too, but I want to get to one thing real quick. When you said you put it into a blender, and I think that's a great point, because sometimes I think movies do try to mash genres, but they don't put them in a blender long enough, and so they never fully form into one cohesive protein shake. You just have kind of disparate elements in different parts. This one, though, I feel like they put those three genres you mentioned, put them into a Vitamix, a really nice Vitamix, blend the living daylights out of them, and then they all formed a really neat final. Does that make sense? Like, I'm calling it a protein shake. I just had a protein shake, so that's what's on my mind. But I think they were really blended expertly. And you know what's interesting is, what I remember of this movie is exactly what the director Christoph Gans wanted from this film. This is the guy who directed Silent Hill, which is one of... I don't remember any story from that movie, but boy, do I remember the feeling of it.
Yeah, super visual.
Yeah.
Super pretty to look at, but also terrifying.
The tone, I remember feeling, was very effective. But for me, though, when I think about Brotherhood of the Wolf, I've never once wondered about the politics or anything like that. It's just been such a visual fest for me. I remember the rain fight. Whenever you talk about rain fights, it's Brotherhood of the Wolf. Whenever you think about just the slow motion, the diving underneath the spiked log, the monster itself, I think there's a scene which I love when Franzak, he slams the guy's head into a wall and then he kicks him further into the wall. It's beautiful. And so I guess what I always remembered about this movie is I've never thought much about the plot or the intrigue or any of that. I've just let it wash over me, like you are currently being rained on, as a really neat experience. And that's just what I guess I really appreciate about the director. And you know what's neat about the behind the scenes? There's 2 documentaries that are 2.5 hours total. They're hour 15 each. But the director was talking about how in France at the time, there was visual directors and then there was kind of actor directors. And if you were a visual director, you weren't good with actors. But if you were like an actor's director who wanted to make those kind of films, like very serious films, then you weren't about the visuals. So visuals weren't important if your performances were good. But if you're a visual director, you just wanted the visual and not the performances. And it was kind of interesting. And Christoph was like, screw that. He's like, I want to do both. I wanted to have good performances and I wanted to have good visuals. He's like, but I guess he was being sort of attacked for it. And actors, his first movie I was watching where the director, it was, what is it? Freeman, Freeman? Yeah. Crying Freeman.
Based on the anime.
Yeah. He had his actors like he would basically Fincher them where he puts them in a spot. He tells them exactly what to do, exactly how to say the dialogue. And then this one, he gave them more freedom. But it was wild watching the behind the scenes because Vincent Cassel was sort of insulting the director, and so was the lead actor. He was insulting the director at first in a cheeky way, but then eventually, because they'd be like, "Hey, Christoph, like, what's my motivation?" He's like, "I don't care, figure it out." But then as the movie went on, he started working with them with their characters, and they said it became a much more supportive atmosphere. But I thought that was really interesting because Christoph didn't care, because I think what he did was he tried to go so crazy in the first film with his actors that they hated it. So in this one, he gave them nothing, but these actors wanted something. So he had to find a happy medium, but he found that halfway through Brotherhood of the Wolf, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but, I mean, that makes sense.
But I mean, you don't bring in... You look through the IMDb of a lot of these actors who are in this film, and they are gigantic French actors. I mean, he had some legends in this film. So this was a big event out there. I think we kind of forget that. I know I went off on a tangent, but I don't even know if I'm making sense anymore. But I just really like the behind the scenes footage because it's much more open, and it's the first one. It's just them making the movie. You're basically a fly on the wall as that. The rain fight. They had 2 trucks that were water tanks, but then they realized they couldn't run both trucks at the same time because the water pressure would drop. So then eventually the trucks ran out of water, and they didn't tell anybody, so they drove away. And then they went to film, and there were no water trucks around to pour water on the actors. So the director's like, where are they? And everyone's like, oh, they're away. And like, when are they going to be back? In a half hour. And then the guy was like, do we have a fireman on set? And like, no, we don't have a fireman. But it was like fun. It was, you almost feel like you're a crew member on this movie. And it just, I don't know, it made me happy. So if you're ever looking to watch cool behind the scenes videos, check that out. I digress.
So Mark, why do you think this movie kind of disappeared for me, it feels like 10 years.
Okay. I think the thing is that it's just a good movie. When you think about movies that have true staying power, they got to be controversial, or they have to be groundbreaking, or they have to be truly original, singular in focus. this movie is just good. And that's not an insult. It's a good movie, but it's not. It doesn't have the greatest creature features of all. It doesn't have the greatest creature ever. It doesn't have the best fights ever. It doesn't have any. People should talk about that transition into Mountaintop more. But sometimes I feel like movies that are just good and people like them, they don't have that staying power. Because am I making sense? Because there's no Matrix. There's no Matrix scene where the side of the helicopter goes into the building and it rumbles and the bullet time. This is just a good movie.
I also think, at least, I mean, it's probably more popular, let's be honest.
Yeah.
But I think in America we have a tendency not to really want to watch subtitles. So I watched this movie in both. I saw it in the theater. It was dubbed.
Oh yeah.
And then I watched it again dubbed, and then I watch it like literally right before this podcast with the subtitles, and the subtitle viewing experience is significantly better. And I highly recommend people use the subtitles.
Yeah. Don't dub it. Do not dub it.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, to be honest, the first time I watched it was a couple weeks ago, and I was exhausted, and I just wanted to put it on, and I was like, I'm not reading. I just stuff.
Got it.
But when it came to time to really watch it for the podcast, it's subtitles time. What I was saying is I think that American audiences tend to ignore subtitles or ignore movies with subtitles, unfortunately, honestly, because there's some really great things out there. And then this movie feels like it also fell into this weird time of it's again, I'm gonna harp on this, it's not The Matrix, right? Like The Matrix came out in 99. This movie was supposed to come out in 2000, and it got pushed. Oh no, this movie was supposed to come out in 2001. It got pushed to 2002. Because it was supposed to come out the week of 9/11. But it feels like it came out in this time period where everyone was trying to figure out what was the Matrix. Matrix was a thing that everyone was talking about, even multiple years later. And this gets sort of overlooked because of that.
No, and you're right. And I think 2001 was in a weird place for action in general. When did this? You said so. This was 2001.
Yeah, I read a review with Mark, I know him, Mr. Chairman. He said it was supposed to come out a little bit after 9/11, but after that happened, they pushed it to the following year.
Yeah, it came out January.
Came out 2002.
2002, and so I keep saying 2001 because that's what's on IMDb. But you're right. I think also though this movie made 11 million in the States, which was a record, one of the records for French films at the time. But nobody was going to the theaters in January of that. I was working in a theater at this time and nobody was going. So the fact that it pulled it, I had to go to a bigger theater to go see this, not the ones I work at. And so this movie was it was a weird time for film because it was after 9/11, and then it was
weird time of the year.
Yeah, weird time of the year. And also it's a 2.5 hour French film. And I think but I mean, look at Rumble in the Bronx when it came over in 95. It wasn't a blockbuster success. It was more for cinephiles coming out.
Yep.
So I think it's done really well. But I also what do you like? If you look at movies Parasite, that became a blockbuster worldwide because I think everyone sort of understood the themes, and it became kind of an event movie, I guess. It just had so much momentum to it.
Yeah, it was. Well, it was. What year did Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon come out?
Oh, 2001. That was another huge event. That was 215 million worldwide. Amazing. But I mean, I think people remember that because Michelle Yeoh's fight and that insane fight at the end, and the way they ran on top of the wire work was, it was still wire work, but I mean, actually the Hong Kong cinema, they helped pioneer wire work. So it was just expertly done. So I think it didn't have anything new like Crouching Tiger. It didn't tackle themes that Parasite tackled. And I think it's just a movie, and it's a horror movie, so some people don't go watch that. It's just, I think it's set up for just cinephiles to enjoy.
Yeah, and again, I don't think the trailer really... The trailer felt like maybe more bro-ish than the movie actually is, if that makes sense. They're
yeah.
This guy has a whip sword. Go watch this movie. Sweet. And, the whip sword is inspired by Soul Calibur because there's a character with the same thing. At least that's what I read. It could, I don't fully know that. But then you watch the movie, it's like, oh, there's a love triangle in this. It's really a horror movie. There's political intrigue. I can see the wrong audience going to see this movie and then not telling a bunch of people not to go see it.
No, you're right. Yeah, because But see, I remembered thinking that, but I was able to roll with it because it was something new. I think at this time in my life, 01, 02, I was just craving new cinema. So I was trying to get my hands on as much as possible. I mean, this is when I was starting to watch all the Kubrick movies, watch all the Kurosawa films. I think I was just trying to expand my knowledge as much as possible. So even though this movie wasn't what I expected, I still dug it. I still really liked it. But I did leave scratching my head a little bit because I'm like, wait, okay, so they are using this wolf to create political instability, which makes the king look bad. And then that will weaken the king. And then this Illuminati group will take over because the king looks foolish. Is that?
Yeah, sort of. They're just trying to put the fear of God into peasantry in order to stop the Enlightenment is what I got from it. And they're using the wolf, the lion in armor, to cause that. Like it is super convoluted.
And you know what though? There are some lines that I really like in here because there is a line where he says, like, it's better to lie to stop lying. Does that, like, they wanted to put a lie out there to stop other lies from spreading when they killed that wolf and then they painted it and put the red stripes on it.
What a bad job. Yeah. The fish was funny at the beginning and I saw that wolf. I was like, he did not do good work.
Yeah, you could tell his heart was not in that. But yeah, I think they said that they wanted to, let's see, I have it in my notes. He said they want to, and then yeah, they wanted to kill the thing to prevent the lies from spreading, which is, I guess that's smart, right? He said, better lie than let lies be told, and then simplify the beast. Because if the peasantry just keep telling stories about it, it'll just get worse and worse and worse and worse. So then cut off the lie by lying is what the king wanted. Which, yeah. I mean,
it makes some sense. I get what he's doing there.
Oh gosh, I'm looking through my notes and just remembering how many great things there are in this film. Like, I love when Monica Bellucci is told that your fragrance is not that of a lady.
Marianne, all right. So let's actually talk about Marianne. The most Midwestern pronunciation of that, Marianne. I mean, she does a good job. The actress does a good job with the part she's given. The thing that that really got to me was like, Ronzak, why is he attracted to her? Because like they should have nothing in common. He's like a 40-year-old dude hitting on a 19-year-old who has like no worldly experience, and I'm like, it just does not work in my head at all.
Yeah, no. Because they try to do the banter. Remember when he said, but I'm in love. And she's like, how could you be in love with me? He's like, well, not with you. And then she rides off.
Yeah, that didn't work.
No, and then he does the faces at her. He's very pleased with himself in the beginning with the fur fish. He is a very pleased with himself taxidermist. Okay. Yeah, I think you just.
He should have ended with Sylvia. That's the spy, the Roman spy. Like clearly that was the right choice. He made a terrible decision.
She's in deep cover too, Sylvia. I mean, she is like what?
Super deep.
The Pope sends her out to do his work, and then that's what. Wait, what if Franzak never came there? Oh no, she was undercover to look up the villains, right? He was.
Yeah, she was there spying on the villains because men speak in their sleep.
And they all say the same thing. But yeah,
I love mountains.
Oh man, I gotta say though, when she takes her fan blade and slices that lady's neck, I'm never a big fan of people getting killed in movie, but that lady's such a pain in the butt in that film. So
and she's very confusing. Yeah, she deserved that. Get out of here.
In the beginning, her performance was a turn to 13 at all moments. I don't think I've ever seen a human laugh so much. It's like, get out of here, lady. And then Bellucci just wipes her out.
Yeah, so let's I'm trying to think here.
This movie,
Sylvia. I wanted to talk a little bit more about Sylvia. One of my favorite scenes of this movie, and it's and I laugh at it, and I think it's actually really clever, is when she's sort of flirting with Franzak, and she's like, "Do you know how Italian women keep their men at home, poison them in the morning. And I was just like, oh, this is great. Poison him.
Yeah.
Other than Manny, she was my second favorite character. Like I really loved Sylvia.
Well, she's just hanging out with him. Like, she seems pretty unapologetic about everything. She's obviously a very capable spy, and then she kills him. They bring him back. She accomplishes her goals. She slashes some throats. She has a great editing gag in there. But yeah, she's just totally confident in her abilities, which is kind of nice. And it's always weird when you have these love triangles, but then there's obviously someone who's like way better than one of the people in the love triangle, or like the main love interest. But
yeah, she's significantly better. Like there's no getting away around it. I was like, if Franzak is supposed to be a libertine, he's supposed to be enlightened, he's supposed to be like carefree, a stuffy royal woman should not get his motorboat going. That's all I'm saying.
And I love that you brought it up. I mean, he's the king's taxidermist. And so I like that there's almost a Sherlock Holmes type vibe here. And if you look at Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock Holmes, I see a lot of similarities between him and Franzak, where two smart men, they're on a mystery. He sees the silver bullet. No one believes him. He knows it's a wolf. He's smarter than everybody else. And then, there's big conspiracies. There's like Moriarty type Illuminati. And then he can also beat the living daylights out of people in slow motion. So I almost feel like this has been done before, Indiana Jones and kind of stuff like that. But I feel like Franzak's sort of a proto Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock in those movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Did you get those vibes at all while watching?
I kind of got the vibe that I didn't get that specific vibe. No. I kept thinking, I was like, oh, this guy has a lot of talents, and he just keeps getting more and more talents. Is he a Mary Sue? What is he bad at? But ultimately, I just didn't care. I was like, let him go beat a bunch of guys up. This is fun.
Yeah, when he finally turns at the end and goes inside the house and just destroys.
That's brutal. Oh, I was not prepared for that, by the way, the first time I saw it.
He kills the crap out of people. He lights the stable on fire. I love just the way that he kills people. And, the fight choreographer on this was Philip Kwok, and he did Hard Boiled. I mean, this is a gigantic fight coordinator that they had on this set. So watching these fights oh man, I love it. It makes me so happy. But like just watching Dacascos in his kicks, and then watching Franzak, who, I mean, even if it is his double, he still does create quite an imposing hero, which is pretty cool to see. And just a butt kicking taxidermist. I mean, that's got to be a world's first, does it not?
Butt kicking that's true. So I had some things I wanted to ask you about this movie. I guess before I do that, though, I should mention something. Like, I don't know who your audience would listen to this podcast without watching the movie, but just in case someone is, and they're thinking about watching it, there is some moments with like potential animal abuse that I found very difficult to watch, especially with wolves. I was trying to look it up to see if they had.
Yeah,
I was looking it up to see if there was anything that said like no animals were hurt during this, and there's nothing. The Humane Society was like, we don't know. Like, it looks like maybe they were, but we can't prove it in one way or the other. So I'm just giving everyone a heads up on that, because I personally I looked away from the screen a couple of times because, as a proud dog father and someone who donates to wolf conservation on a regular basis, it was a little difficult for me to watch.
Yeah,
definitely on Manny's side.
It was terrible when they were killing those wolves.
Yeah,
like, they were just slaughtering them. And also that lamb in the behind the scenes documentary. The director wanted to create his poltergeist moment with the gross water. They put that woman in some really gross water, by the way, David. That's like...
I was thinking about that. I was like, is this real? Did she actually, like, her face, I was like, she's acting, or did this actually happen?
They dug a hole, and they filled it with water, and then they plopped her in there. So it's not clean. So in some movies, you'll build a tank. So in Annihilation, right, when the house is sunk, they built a tank into the ground, and all that water was clean for the actors. This one, it was a hole in the ground. It was a puddle that they filled with water. And then the lamb wouldn't stay, so then they tied it down in the beginning. So yeah, it was pretty... And then watching those wolves, I don't think this was the most humane style of filming.
No.
But, I mean, it's effective, though. I can't think... When they were killing those wolves, it just crushed my soul watching that. But and then when they just randomly killed the dogs for the beast, is that just to keep the beast mean? Like
I guess, yeah. There's a lot of dog wolf violence in this.
Yeah, so that hit you hard.
Yeah, it hit me really hard. More so than the deaths, but it always does. Like I have a dog that I've raised since he was a puppy. And again, like I'm serious. I do donate to wolf preserves and conservation on a regular basis.
Nice.
My personal Instagram is basically all wolves.
So you're all about wolves, and I'm all about possums.
Yeah. I don't have a wolf tattoo. It's a bit much. But I had a couple of questions for you here. So I wanted to be like, could you imagine the pitch meeting? Like, what is the pitch meeting for this movie is like? It's like, we're going to take this real life event and add kung fu. Like, sold, you got it.
Yeah, the script was developed. So in the beginning, it was just a lot of walking and then talking by fire. It was just people hunting down this legend. It was more of a kind of think piece type film. But then they
really?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was just kind of people talking by fires at night. And then because the whole point was about the animal that was killing people during this time, and it was just people hunting them, very thoughtful picture. And then they brought in the, for lack of a better word, Illuminati, the different religious structures. And then when they added Dacascos in there, then it just became a full-on action movie. So yeah, it went from a kind of Jaws-esque thought piece to a wild hybrid movie. But I like what you're having to say, though, because if this was written as such a hybrid and you're the director, okay, David, I'm a producer, you're a director, pitch this to me.
Okay, so you know that wolf story from, I don't know, 400 years ago? That, but karate, huh? Does the wolf know karate? Oh, no, it's a Native American. Native American comes to France and then gets in a karate fight with the wolf. And then it's probably like, interesting. Any bullet time? Not bullet time, but we will slow the camera down.
So, does the wolf know karate?
We can teach it karate if you really want to.
What if we put a lion in a suit? Oh.
Yeah. The pitch meeting had to be really wild, but I'm really happy it got made. And that kind of leads into my next question, Mark, is like, what's the American equivalent of this, right? Like, I was racking my brain of like, is there an American event that could be turned into something wild like this? And honestly, the only things I could think of is like more cryptid based. It's like the Mothman or Skinwalker Ranch or Fire in the Sky. But I'm like, is there like an animal? Like, I don't know any type of animal that like terrorized American town. Like, I can't think of anything.
Yeah, because we're going for real world stuff. We're not saying
I was
swamp,
trying to, yeah.
Like
I don't know.
I mean, there are bear attacks where people have to survive for long periods of time, kind of like The Edge.
Oh, The Edge is good.
Yeah, that kind of movie. I don't think so.
It's not the same. Right? So like,
there's no legends. There's no.
Yeah, I was like, okay, here's an idea for I'm gonna pitch this idea. You put your producer hat on. I'm a director, and this is just off the top of my head. Okay, you know how Chicago burned down because of that cow? What if during that fire, two kung fu gangs have to fight each other to get out?
So it's like Hard Rain, but with fire.
In Chicago as it's burning down.
Oh my gosh.
And like even and he had to have some like animal in it, right? Like,
well, maybe the World's Fair is there, so we just combine events. And during the World's Fair, a wild animal is brought and it escapes. So there's wild animals that they found in the deepest, darkest area of somewhere that's there that escapes. And then there's a huge fire, and then there's kung fu gangs. So it's like the Warriors meets Firestorm.
Yeah, it doesn't really work. And then we're going off a tangent here, but another thing that I was thinking about, I was like, okay, so what is like a quintessential American animal that we could put in our American version of Brotherhood of the Wolf? So it'd be Brotherhood of the Animal. And I was like, well, there's brown bears, right? Like, brown bears are American, and there's big cats. Big cats are American. We get the Brotherhood of the panther, or the Brotherhood of the lion, not a lion, mountain lion. And then I was like, there's really only one answer to this, and it's like Brotherhood of the wild turkey.
Oh,
it's like the most American bird.
Vicious too. You don't mess or
They're horrible.
I mean, the Canadian geese too. That could be the up north version of it.
Brotherhood of the Canadian geese.
Just a gigantic pterodon-esque Canadian geese.
Yeah.
Goose lighting people up. And I did read a book recently called De-Evolution about a Bigfoot attack in a sustainable community, written by Max Brooks, the guy who did the Zombie Survival Guide in World War Z. So I could see that if that was true. And then you could add in the political era of 2 years ago with Bigfoots, and then add Kung Fu.
We're getting there. To go back to the movie, because I love that tangent, but let's go back to the movie for a second. One of the impressions I had when watching this is that it felt like the most glorious fanfic I'd ever seen made, if that makes sense. It really was like, Vampire the Masquerade meets a really good version of kind of movie we covered, Van Helsing. Like, let's be honest, this is a better version of Van Helsing. It's like all the stuff I wanted Van Helsing to do is in this movie.
Yeah, people from out of town coming into town to kill a monster.
Yeah, but again, like I was saying, like I just got a really like fanficky vibe of which in fanfiction you usually like mesh a bunch of stuff together to see what happens, and it's not negative, but it just shocked me a little bit.
Well, look at 50 Shades of Grey, and look at Twilight, I believe. Did Stephenie Meyer start that off as fanfic?
I mean, that's the rumor that I know of. I can't say that one.
Yeah, I got it.
But someone's always said that to me.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
And you know what I love too is like, we're gonna make this movie, but we're gonna add. There's a 5-minute fight scene when Dacascos first fights those guys in the circle, and then the ladies jump in, and then more people jump. That's 5 minutes right there of him just beating people up. So I love the script of this movie to be intrigue, political intrigue, romance, monster, 5-minute fight with Mark Dacascos, mystery, intrigue, love triangle, 5-minute fight with Mark Dacascos.
They probably cut one too. They're like, oh, we can't have 4 fights. Are you sure? Like, are you good?
Can we make it 2 minutes?
He was nominated for a Saturn Award for this, and he's great. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, he says maybe 12 words throughout this entire movie. But the first time you hear him speak, he's like, thank you.
He cuts a great figure in this movie. And it was kind of funny, the behind the scenes documentary, you're watching through his makeup test, and he was trying to find the perfect makeup for his face, and the director was just not into any of it. It's pretty funny, actually. But yeah, I mean, for the limited screen time and not screen time, but the limited dialogue, he's a really popular character. I mean, I don't know why Mark Dacascos wasn't bigger. I don't know.
Let's talk about that. I was going to bring that up too, because he has the look, he has the skills, he has the charisma, and I feel like he's always like a B- like star, if that makes sense. Like if you knew who he was, you knew who he was. Yeah, I wonder why? Because I think he's pretty good in a bunch of stuff.
I mean, I think what happened was, he did have a really good career overseas, but I think here in the States he went to do Only the Strong. And then that's a movie I really liked, but then it got no promotional backing at all because he had to go shoot on another movie. And then he was in Double Dragon, the 94 film, which had a giant budget that was supposed to be his springboard. And then that didn't take off. And if you think about it, in the 90s, it's probably the same 10 people making those movies that go into the theaters. And I think nowadays, if you look at Iko Uwais and Tony Jaa, Michael Jai White, those actors, you can have a great Scott Adkins, you can have a great career you're not seen in theaters all the time. But back then, if you weren't, because he was in the early 90s when he kicked off, but in that time you had Stallone, you had Schwarzenegger, Wesley Snipes, Steven Seagal, like you had all the big names. And then it just sort of, because he had the look, he had the personality, like he had the martial arts. I think it was the same 10 people over and over again, and he just couldn't break through into that. He didn't, and also, I don't think he had a starring vehicle that, you watch Bloodsport, you watch Kickboxer, those were perfectly tailored to Jean-Claude Van Damme's skill set. He just didn't have that opportunity. I don't think Mark Dacascos did. And I think he had a lot of wasted time. He had a couple non-starts. So yeah, they wanted big things about him because I know this sounds bad, but when Brandon Lee passed away, they're like, oh man, like we'll bring in Dacascos now because you can't have more than one, Asian actor being an action star on the planet. But then he, Double Dragon didn't do well. So I think he just sort of went overseas and made Crying Freeman. And then he made this, which was a big blockbuster. And the guy works. So I just think
he does a ton of TV, lots of TV.
So I just think that's what it is. It was the time. He didn't have that one movie that really kicked off his career. It was the same 10 people over and over. So, I mean, I don't know. That's my theory. I don't know what you think, but
I mean, I think it's a pretty good theory.
I mean, look at the movies he was on, right? He was supposed to be in The Island of Dr. Moreau. Look what happened to that.
I thought he was in.
He was. I'm sorry, he was. But I mean, look what happened to that. He was supposed to be in Double Dragon, but look what happened to that. So I mean, he had Only the Strong and American Samurai. Those didn't kick off too well. So I just think, he
never hit that big thing. If he had like one big movie, he would have been just springboarded really fast.
And these movies had heat though. They just didn't connect. So I think after that, they're just kind of, all right.
Maybe we'll see him again in some more movies because he popped up in Parabellum and, it was a great role.
Well, he was in Wu Assassins with Iko Uwais. That was really cool. He was in 17 episodes of Hawaii Five-0. So, I mean, he's been working. This guy, if you look at his IMDb, he's always had a movie coming out. He's always been on something since the 90s. So he found a great career. It's just, what's interesting too? I feel bad because he's a Thai boxer, 50 episodes. But yeah, I think sometimes you get these actors who are amazing and then they got to go to DVD for a while. Then everyone's like, why did they waste their time on DVDs? And then they get a reappraisal. I think that's sort of happening to him. And maybe directors who loved his movies as kids in the 90s are now putting them back in movies now that they're directors, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I have faith that we'll see a couple more things from him in the future.
Yeah. Hey, let's do something real quick. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to talk our favorite moments.
Yep.
All right, cool. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Movies, Films, and Flicks. And 5 favorite moments, David?
Yes. You want to do them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I go? Can I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
The blowing up the pumpkin scene.
I knew you were going to pick that one. It's so gratuitous.
It's just the juiciest pumpkin explosions with crossbows, with guns, and with axes. I mean,
what's funny about that is like you never see they're blowing it up from the inside clearly because you never see anything get punctured. It just blows outward, and I'm like, this is bad directing right here.
Yeah, that's a great point. You throw an axe and then it explodes. But it's beautiful. You know what though? Everyone knew what they were doing there. It's just the juiciest pumpkin explosions. So that's my number 5.
Could you imagine being on the set and the director's like, these pumpkins aren't juicy enough. Get more juice.
We need juicy pumpkins. Somebody.
Okay, my number 5 is Sylvia in the poison discussion, as we mentioned earlier. I just think it's a really funny scene, and the look that, oh my god, the Fransak gives her is like, oh no, did I screw up here? And it's like, maybe you kind of did, bud.
It's I love that scene, and she's just he did mess up, and then she's like, yeah, I better not see you again later on too, but she's too good for him. She has to go do more secret things around the world, I guess.
We'll take it that way. She's too good for him. Absolutely, she is. You're right.
There it is. Okay, so my number 4 is when Manny dies underneath the spike tree, because that was in every trailer. And then behind the scenes documentary, it's about 20 minutes of them. It's the stunt coordinator first diving, and then it's Dacascos diving, and they really rigged up a cool looking thing. I mean, but yeah, I got to watch how they did it, but it's such a cool looking jump, and I think that's it. And also too, the trap, David, that they set for that beast, they did everything that they could. If you and I set that trap up and a creature still escapes, we just got to shrug our shoulders. Like, we really can't
quit. I'm going home.
we can't. Like, I wonder. Like, we couldn't even take it as a loss, because it's like we did everything humanly possible to trap this creature, and it exploded through wooden bamboo enclosures, which should never happen. So I feel like something supernatural is happening there. So you and I could just, yes, it got away, but we did everything we could. Like, I wouldn't feel bad.
Yeah. The thing that I laughed at about that scene is the Marquis like passes out for literally like a couple hours, maybe 8 hours, and they come back and like there's this elaborate trap work. I was like, wow, they worked really fast.
Yeah, that's
It's Dark Knight level fast.
Yeah, there's no way they could have built all that so quickly. But it's still beautiful. I mean,
it is really cool.
But the two of them together, though, they seem like a well-oiled machine. So if anybody could do it, they probably could.
My number 4 is the second fight scene, which I think is great, but specifically when Manny sticks his tongue out mocking the fighters who had like yelled at him, like, "Oh, you so scary." And I was like, perfect. Thank you, Mark Dacascos, because that was absolutely a choice he made.
Yeah, that was yeah. I mean, Mark Dacascos, like, yeah, that was funny because he owned all those people. Like, have you ever seen something like that? Just a group of people fighting. They're not trying to kill each other. They're just sort of beating each other up, like having fun, getting kicked in the face.
No, I mean wrestling.
Yeah, that's
not
true.
Not like fisticuffs.
Who's training? You know, the Wolf crew. They have some warriors who know spin kicks. So I don't know where they found these people, but they found some good henchmen for sure. I love that fight though. Okay, so I'm on my number 3. I'm gonna say when I've said it before, but when Monica Bellucci kills the woman with the fan, because that lady had to go. She was just
that's the worst.
She had to go, and so listen, I don't condone murder in movies, but she was just such a problem all throughout that yeah, I'm glad Monica got her. So that was good.
My number 3 is the opening fight scene. I think it's awesome. It's really good. Sets the stage. I particularly like when he kicks the stave up to his hands. You're like, oh, this is gonna be a good movie, because like if you think about it, like had a prologue with a woman dying, so setting up the horror. Then it had an introduction of the characters setting up the kung fu, and I'm just like, I don't know what I'm watching, but I'm into it.
Yeah, why is there a rain fight? Why am I watching this rain fight? But it's beautiful. I mean, it was a stick fight too. It's a rain stick fight.
Why are they? And then the first time I watched it, I was like, why are they in women's clothing? I'm so confused.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I never really thought about it until we started this episode. I'm like, oh, they're undercover. Jeez Louise. So my number 2, there's a scene where Franzak is walking through a like laboratory area, and you just hear the sound effect of every animal that's in all the jars. So he looks at something and you hear wow, like lion roaring, and I'm like, is Franzak hearing this? Is this?
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah. I just love the sound effect because there's so much squishy sound effects in this movie. There's squishy, there's mud. There's great Foley work in this movie, but when he is walking through that room, just hearing all the various animals and their screams that should never happen. I don't even know why they're there, but yeah, that's my number 2.
So Mark, I think we're on the same page here, but I just reiterate, those are all noises from animals in Africa. He has never been to Africa. He is making all those up in his mind. He might, is he crazy? Yeah. Are they actually doing that? I have no understanding what's happening there.
Yeah, just listening to that, I just thought, what is happening? This is beautiful, but not in an ironic way. Like, I unironically love it. I think it's a beautiful moment. So yeah, that's my number 2.
Okay, so my number 2 is when the jailer, who also moonlights as a chef, makes a really tasty meal for the inmates. He's so delicately putting stuff into the broth and tasting it, and I'm just like, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm in for it. Like, that's a lot of detail.
Yeah, I'll stay in this place if this is the food I'm getting. Yeah, I love that scene. I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe that's what it is like, right? Well, it makes me happy. Let's see. Am I at my number 1?
Yeah.
Okay. I've already talked about 8 times, but there's a scene during the house fight where Franzak slams a guy's head into a wall, into it. And then he kicks him further into the wall. And it's such a brutal, but really cool. For me, it's up there with the door kick in Transporter. It's up there with the scene in Broken Arrow where Slater goes through the train and kicks Howie Long off the train, but he's on a bridge, so he falls all the way off, like he falls a long distance. There's some really cool scenes. And for me, it's all about, I love it. I love when he does the head smash into the wall and then the kick further into the wall. Like, that's just a beautiful moment. It makes me so happy.
Great. Yeah, that's a whole really good scene that I was surprised at how long it was and how brutal it was. But it was nice.
Oh, can I do one runner-up real quick before you get to your number 1? Can I just do it before I forget?
Yeah.
Okay, so I like that the movie just stops after Manny's killed. And they're like, oh, he had to go clean him, and then he's like, but he had to burn him. He had to leave to go burn him. It was you think, oh man, he's gonna go on a rampage, and this is gonna be it. But then they're like, no, he's got to take care of his friend, and I dig that. Like the character Franzak's crying in that scene where he's cleaning off Manny. That was his brother, and I think death in a lot of movies never has weight, but Manny's death actually has some weight to it. So that's my runner up.
When I saw this the first time in the theater, when Manny died, I was like, I can't believe they did this. Like, he's the biggest star in the movie. Oh my god.
Yep. Oh, it sucked.
Yeah. Number one, just generally, it's Sylvia and Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, she's the best.
She's the best. She's absolutely the best. And I guess my runner-up would be boobs into mountains. Just the audacity of that scene.
You can't listen. I understand it's wildly gratuitous, but it just put a smile on my face because I'm like, they just did that. They did it.
Yeah.
They did that.
I laughed out loud when I saw it.
Oh man. Hey, so before we get out of here, you want to do our draft real quick?
Yeah. So we're gonna play a game, and this is gonna be called Trained Villainous Pets. The idea here is we're gonna draft villainous pets. Mark, I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay. I'm probably taking yours or one of yours, but I have to. It's my favorite monster ever, and that's Rancor.
Oh, you did. I thought you were going to miss that one.
From Return of the Jedi, because it's a trained creature. It has the Rancor trainer who comes in and cries when the thing dies, and then his buddy hugs him. It's absolutely beautiful. As much, I don't know why Return of the Jedi gets flack, but you feel for the Rancor keeper and his friend. But watching that Rancor die and the guy crying over him, it's really oddly humane, and you're kind of mad at Luke for doing it. So it makes sense. For me, it's all about that. Yeah, that's it.
So my number one overall pick, and you can tell me no on this, I'll accept it. The crocodile from Lake Placid.
I mean, Betty White is
feeding it, and it's kind of a pet.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, I'm taking that one.
I mean, because she feeds it, she raised it. Yeah. I'll go with that. I think that's fair. And I mean, it's on here right now. I looked at this nine most villainous pets, and the thing's on there. So, yeah, I like that. Oh man, can I do? Okay, I'm gonna do a Return of the Jedi at the end, another one, but I'm gonna go to Congo.
Congo. Okay.
Yeah, because the apes in that one were trained by Zinj, the city of Zinj. They were originally trained and groomed to become protectors of the diamonds in that movie.
That's a good one.
So at the end when they come, I mean, listen, they've been around for generations, so they hadn't been trained, but they came from their ancestors were trained gray apes that were just mean. So, yeah, I like that. I think that's yeah. And Laura Linney lights them up, so that makes me happy.
All right, this is my number two. I'm gonna go with the rats in Willard.
Oh yeah.
And it's multiple of them, but I think they're pretty villainous.
Oh, they're very villainous. That's a good one. Ooh, I like that. Oh man, I missed. Yeah, I mean, they do his bidding. Okay, that's good. That's really good. I'm gonna go for my third, Tiny the T-Rex from Meet the Robinsons, because
I don't know that one.
Well, so it is working under mind control from the bowler hat guy, but he does have that famous line where he's like, "Why don't you get him?" He's like, "'Cause I have a big head and little arms." So
oh, that's right.
It's just such a great line. It's kind of working under mind control, which is, I wasn't trained into cruelty like the lion in Brotherhood of the Wolf, but I mean, it still works. So.
Yeah. Okay, my number three, the Pomeranians in Blade 3.
Oh, the vampire.
The vampire Pomeranians, which I think are hilarious.
Oh, that's amazing. Because that thing is, yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, no, that's great. I don't like that movie. I like Parker Posey a lot, David.
Yeah.
But I watched the first two Blade movies again, and I think Wesley Snipes is perfection. So what are you going to do in a third one? You want to do a backdoor pilot for the Night Stalkers. So you pair a Blade, a man who says 4 words per movie, and you pair him up with Ryan Reynolds. That doesn't work. That's not if he would have paired up with Beale and they're both quiet, that's better. But just having Ryan Reynolds around talking all the time and then Wesley Snipes not talking, not good. I don't like it.
Yeah. Ugh.
All right. So I'm gonna do was it Nagini from Voldemort's?
Nagini.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean he's the pet. I know it was a woman.
Yeah.
But
she's the pet.
Yeah, she's the pet. But I mean they have a psychic connection. She does some pretty crazy stuff. They speak parcel tongue. But that's a pet who's basically under the spell. So that makes sense to me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome.
Okay. My number 4 is going to be Ella from Monkey Shines.
Oh.
A monkey.
I love that.
I know.
Are you getting some Romero in there? That's Monkey Shines, isn't it?
Is it Romero? I can't remember.
Monkey Shines. Let me look this up. But do you want to hear my fifth and final? And I'm going back to Return of the Jedi. And you can say no, but I think Salacious B. Crumb, the little Kawakian lizard that sits on Jabba's thing.
Good.
Because listen, it's a pet, but it rips out C-3PO's eyeball. I mean, Salacious Crumb in the laugh. He's evil. Just he rips out it rips out C-3PO's eyebrow, and it just laughs. Remember when they capture Leia and Han? It just laughs at him like, "We got you." So yeah, Salacious Crumb. Yeah, Salacious Crumb. That's what I'm picking for my fifth one.
So I struggled to find a fifth one, and I could use your help on this.
They have fighting pit monsters in Attack of the Clones. I don't know if you use those. You do.
The question I had, and I don't know the answer to this. In Austin Power, are there actually sharks with laser beams on their heads?
Yeah, mutated sea bass.
There we go.
Yeah, I mean, they are mutated, ill-tempered sea bass, and they're basically pets that murder people. It's perfect.
There we go. Let's run through and create our top 5 out of these 10.
Okay, so I have Tiny the T-Rex, the Congo apes, Rancor, Nagini, Salacious Crumb, and then you have the Willard rats, you have mutated sea bass, you have
Monkey Shines, Pomeranians, and the Croc.
Oh man.
So I think right off the bat the Rancor goes in.
Yeah, gotta have Rancor. All right.
Yeah, absolutely the best.
All right, so we got Rancor, and I mean, listen, that Pomeranian's pretty amazing, is it not?
It's so funny. That's the whole reason I wanted to do this list. So let's add it.
All right, yeah. So we got that. So we have 2. So we have the Rancor and we have a vampire Pomeranian. Now, I do really like the Congo apes, and I do like the Croc as well because it is a pet. I do too.
Yeah, the Congo apes are a great deep pool that I wouldn't think about. So let's add those.
Okay. So
and I do love the Croc too.
Because I mean, it's a pet. So now we're down to Tiny the T-Rex, Nagini, Salacious Crumb, Willard, mutated sea bass, or Monkey Shines. But I think I know what I want, and I think maybe you know what I want.
Yeah. Well, the thing here is I wouldn't want to do too many Star Wars.
Yeah. No. I don't want it.
And I think Nagini, because Nagini was a person, there's like a weird might sort of count, might not count aspect to it. And then Tiny T-Rex was mentally controlled, but that line is really good.
Yeah. It's funny. But I mean, I kind of like either mutated sea bass or Willard, the rats.
Yeah. All right. So let's pick between those two. So we have dogs, land, Lake Placid. So that's like freshwater. We got jungle. We got space. Maybe we do mutated sea bass because we can cover all our bases.
Yeah, because all right, so we have freshwater, and then we can do salt water.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, the thing with Monkey Shines is good because it's sneaky and could potentially lead everyone. You know, like you need a leader for this super villainous team.
Yeah.
Mutated sea basses can't do that.
No. There's no leader here. Maybe the apes by virtue of being the smartest.
Yeah.
Should we keep the monkey? Aren't the rats and Willard pretty smart? But they can't.
Yeah, I mean Willard's pretty smart.
What's his?
Is that white rat? But I don't remember its name.
I don't know. I like the gag of mutated sea bass. I mean they're pets. Yeah. They don't need leaders. They'll have a leader.
That's right. They will. They have okay. Mutated sea bass.
Vincent Cassell will lead them and give them horrible, horrible lives.
There we go. We got it, Mark.
Hey, well, this was awesome, man. Hey, do you want to promote the Award Wieners Movie Review podcast before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I'm the co-host of the podcast Mark just mentioned, and we do reviews of Oscar-winning, Best Picture-winning movies, and we pair that with a hot dog recipe. Our podcasts are really about like film history and getting to understand the movie. We try to go do deep dives into them and explain why they won, their place, historical context within film, and we're doing all of them. The next one we're going to do is Argo, so if you like Argo, check that one out.
It's great. I love it. And let's see. And check out his Instagram. Well, wonderful Instagram page.
Thank you. I do a lot of work of making funny things on there.
No, that's great. So, I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. And we're doing Alligator next. We're finally getting to Alligator, my friend.
Doing that one, and I'm going to put the call out there again. If you know of a Jaws inspired movie for us to cover, let us know. So far we have Alligator, we have Grizzly, and I'm sure we can find a third.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we'll get one. But no, this was great. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you, Mark. Have a good day.
All right, so for me, Mark Hoffmeyer, and for David Cross, who's still being rained on, and he probably has water up to his neck. Total commitment. This is Movies, Films, and Flicks. We'll see you next week.